Mayor Pro Tem Patton.
Here.
Mayor Janney.
Here.
Councilmember Bill Gray is absent.
You all please stand, join me in the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do we have any requests for agenda changes this evening? Not seeing any? That's all? Nothing? Mayor, council reimbursements, disclosures, community announcements. Start with you, Ms. Bragg.
Thank you. I just wanted to announce to the community that Assembly Majority Leader Tony Atkins is honoring the 78th Assembly District's Women of the Year. And that's Friday, March 28th at the State Building. And being honored is former council member Megan Winter from Imperial Beach. So I just wanted to, all my colleagues received this flyer as well, but just encourage perhaps our city manager. I would like to send some flowers along with that presentation. Okay, quite an honor for Mrs. I'm pleased to see her being honored. So thank you.
And just to move on, that Assemblymember Atkins was voted in as the speaker of the Assembly. That's very good for not just Imperial Beach, which she represents, but the San Diego region. And on behalf of the council and the city, we did send a letter of congratulations. Hopefully it went out about 5 minutes after she was sworn in. That was the idea anyway. I think she's done very well for us here. Some of the things that we've had issues with the state of California, so that's very nice. Mr. Spriggs?
I just hope you signed all of our names to that letter, Mr. Mayor.
I don't quite do that.
Nothing this time.
Thank you, Mr. Pat.
Nothing at this time.
I do have a couple of things. For those that aren't aware, the city does not necessarily get involved with school districts, but Sweetwater Union High School District is going through some changes, and perhaps they've been reaching out and they're talking about district elections, of which the effect on Imperial Beach could be that we might end up with representation on their board. The disappointment is the county is asking to waive some of the requirements for putting it to the voters based on a petition of only 750 people. That district that has almost 300,000. But I do believe for Imperial Beach's thing, if we keep an eye on the ball here, we're all concerned about how Mar Vista does, but also the neighboring schools. So that could be a big change coming. And then I'd like to not only let my colleagues know, but the public here, the San Diego County Taxpayers Association, who many of you might know has been one of those that's been really pushing hard on cities on pension benefits and other things. They seem to get caught up on that. But when they did their last report, which came out last week, Imperial Beach was recognized for having the lowest pension cost per capita, the lowest debt per capita, the lowest debt per household. It noted that we are over 85% funded in our pension liabilities for the future. I think that that's very, very good. I think people here and folks in the council and the city staff not only paid down some of that pension debt last budget cycle, but that the employees here have really stepped up, and that's really why we show up on those charts. And being number one of all the cities in San Diego County as far as what we're putting a burden on ourselves and our future generations as far as that. I think that's very good. And although I don't necessarily agree every time that they bring up some issues, I think the fact that they did notice that we did a good job on that should be noticed, and the employees should be recognized for that too.
Mr. Mayor, could I interrupt you? I believe you have the figures as far as the household debt comparisons.
I do. It's hard
pretty
because
striking.
they're pretty striking when you look at the numbers, but the percentages are what's important. We're at the very bottom of the list as far as what we owe and what our costs are annually. Those numbers would be hard for people to understand, but you figure the number one city unfunded liabilities was over $3,000 per household, yet Imperial Beach came under $500 per household. And I think the real thing that is going to help us probably is the amount that we contribute annually along with the employees into the pension system. We're ahead of the game. 85% funding of a long-term liability, which is what it is. It's no different than a social security fund or something like that. You're never really gonna be at 100%, because you're trying to project lifespans of people as all that. Actuarial, thank you, I knew you could help me on that one. They do their data, and right now I think that we're doing very well on that. And it's nice to see that we've never really been recognized. We were out ahead of the game before. We didn't go out there and make a big thing out of it. They were looking at larger cities, but when they came out with this report, they did highlight the city of Imperial Beach, so that's very good for us. Did you want actual numbers? I know that they're hard to digest, so.
No, I just think that, the comparisons to what, other households in the region and what ours are is, I was really impressed with the figures, so I appreciate you sharing that.
I think it's important. Thank you. Mr. Hall, do you have anything this evening? Moving on to public comment for items not on the agenda. I have several speaker slips for items not on the agenda, and I'll start with Mr. Kravitz.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, council members, staff, people at home, people watching on streaming video and Cox Cable. I've been coming here for about 6 years asking for the video stream, and I wanted to congratulate you for finally streaming council meetings and making them available on the internet. So anybody who hasn't been able to watch it, or you don't have a subscription to Cox Cable, you can actually watch these now. It's on YouTube, and it's on links on the patch in the city's website. But anyway, thank you. It's a long time coming. So I've been involved with a website called SaveIB.com and the Imperial Beach Patch, and I've been a political adversary and basically a political watchdog here, and not always appreciated. But I'm going to put my other hat on right now, because most of the council members, they have multiple hats too, because they're council, their successor agency, their housing authority, their financial authority. So they have many hats to wear. I would like to talk about the study that I did in 1999 regarding the Coronado Beltline as a potential transit link to Imperial Beach. A lot of things have changed in 15 years. And Mr. Hall was kind enough to go out and look at the Coronado Beltline with me and discuss some of the issues. We proposed in 99, our study, was to extend the line from 7th Street. Where 7th Street meets the bayfront, there's a white sign about 100 feet past that, and that is a milepost marker. And everything from there back to San Diego is not abandoned. It's still live railroad. The bike trail there is a 30-day clause. Do not threaten the bike trail. I think the bike trail and the railroad can exist. But what I would like to see is an effort to get a NEPA and a CEQA study to study whether or not the common survey line from Carnation and Seacoast to 7th Street, whether or not we could create an easement and punch that rail in here. If Santee can have a trolley line, we can have one. We can't have one with overhead catenary because of the wildlife refuge, but we can certainly have an RDC like the Sprinter has. And the Museum in National City apparently just got a $50,000 grant from Supervisor Cox. And there's discussions going on about running some excursion trains with some repairs to some bridges from National City to the Salt Works. As we studied in 1999, the real destination of that rail line should be the beach. And being able to bring people to the beach is beneficial to everybody. Chula Vista, National City, South San Diego, the port, all the venues that lie along that line, and Imperial Beach could become a destination without people bringing their parks. We get satellite parking because anywhere up that line through Chula Vista, National City, people could park their cars and come to the beach, spend a couple hours. And I don't really care if it's a little miniature Kittyland train or whether it's a sophisticated rapid transit that you can commute to downtown. But we need to do a NEPA study so that if it could go forward, at least we know what we have to do to make it a reality. It involves crossing a Navy base and the National Wildlife Refuge from 7th Street. 2 studies are required. If this could be brought up at MTS and if the city, National City, Chula Vista, Coronado, if they would support exploring it. I'm not asking you to commit. Let's just do the studies and find out what it would take, because it could really get Imperial Beach out of the corner that they're painted in right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Marcus Boyd, I see you have several speaker slips. This has been set as precedent before. 6 minutes is what you have.
Sure, thank you. I don't think it'll take that much time. Good afternoon, or good evening rather, Mr. Mayor, City Council, City staff, and City citizens, specifically the voters. I've come to you in the past asking for safe access, as you recall, with regard to medical marijuana, specifically for those that need it. And during the Proposition S campaign, the anti-campaign that I think was mostly led by you, Mr. Mayor, had a lot of negativity in it. A lot of falsehoods about people that don't look sick, don't deserve it. But I brought today with me a lot of young people. And I'd like you to look at them all. There's a few young people. There are the brown ones in the audience. And there's a specific one in the audience that has cancer for the second time. And if you could pick him out and tell me which one that is, that's the same one that was arrested a couple of weeks ago by the sheriffs as he was sitting on the beach contemplating life or lack of. And he was in what I think in school they call it a crisis situation. He was an individual that was clearly distraught. And when they searched him and they found concentrated cannabis, they did the same thing they did to the last gentleman that I brought to you. They arrested him and charged him with a felony, put him in jail. And this time I bailed him out because he didn't have any money. He doesn't have much of a family. And his girlfriend came with me today, and today we're pleading with you to stop the madness. The Sheriff's Department is brutally attacking youngsters for the use of cannabis. This gentleman has had cancer twice. Once the testicles, and the second one, the 4-inch tumor in his stomach. He's only 22. So when they looked at his bald head and made fun of him, it made me cry. And it should make you too. Goodbye.
Theodore Mack.
Hello, Mayor, City Council. I opted for the tie today, but the mayor went without a tie, so maybe next City Council meeting I'll skip the tie. I have two things I want to talk about today. The first one is the speed limit on Silver Strand Boulevard. I own a business and live on Silver Strand Boulevard. Since the new the Navy base has kind of upped what they're doing there, there's a lot more traffic on Silver Strand Boulevard, and I'm sure the speed limit isn't 60 miles an hour. And that's what's going on Silver Strand Boulevard. When the people come to work in the morning and they leave in the afternoon, people are jamming into the base like 60 miles an hour. This morning I was walking my dog there and I almost got ran over by a car, and the person honked at me and flipped me off. So I just feel like maybe there should be a little looking into that. Just people that are going into the base and leaving the base have to realize that there's children. It's a residential neighborhood. People live in that neighborhood, and they don't need to jam into the base at 60 miles an hour. So I just wanted to point that out. The other issue that I was talking about here with a group of friends about the short-term vacation rental area in Imperial Beach. There are some people who own properties that, luckily they land within the official area for commercial residential areas, and that can be used as commercial short-term rentals. And other people have invested their money outside that zone. And I don't think it's fair. Personally, I think that the city should review expanding its vacation rental area. A lot of families bought second homes as vacation homes in Imperial Beach, and with the downturn in the economy, they're looking for ways to save their homes. And I think allowing those people that are not necessarily within the realm of what is legal in Imperial Beach for vacation rental, maybe we could expand that area to include some of those other areas, so people that have invested in those areas can have the benefit, as well as the other people that are falling within the legal zone of short-term rental. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Apologize. It looks like Carrie Dowd from 1508 Seacoast.
Oh, that's, hi. Kaylee Davidson. Hi, how are you? I'm back again. I was here about a month ago, and I'm on the same issue, the short-term vacation rentals. And I did send a few emails out to a couple of city council members, and I was kind of disappointed because I didn't hear back from anybody yet. So I'm here to say I really want to get this going forward, and I'd like to get this on the agenda. It's time. Summertime's coming, businesses, restaurants, bar owners, you name it. Every day that goes by, you guys are missing your TOT taxes and other people are having hardship. Not everybody can live here full time. We have investment properties, we've been here since the 80s. And there's been amazing changes. They have a new beautiful hotel. And it's time to bring as many families back and share this beautiful area. I don't understand what the holdup is. So I'd like to seriously talk about this and let people have the full potential of their units when they're not able to use it, because it's mostly families coming here. This isn't like Mission Beach or Pacific Beach. Those have a lot more bars and the boardwalk right in front. You know, it's much more, I think it addresses more of the younger generation. Over here, you don't have that. So I think it's very important to bring this issue up again so that you can add more things for these tourists that come in. You know, keep them busy with events, concerts in the parks, you know, things that, you know, we don't, and I haven't seen enough of really over the years. The other thing is I was here a few months ago, listening to everything, what you want to do. You want to buy the fire trucks, you want to put the street lights in the alleys, fix the alleys, the curbsides. All this takes a lot of money, right? So why is it that you're just throwing it out every day when you know people down North and South Seacoast Drive are still renting, but you're losing all that tax that goes to the city? Again, if it's working great for you guys, then okay, but I don't see it as that.
Ma'am, I'm not sure if you're aware of public comment, because it's not an agendized item. We cannot comment on it. The only thing we've ever asked is that the city manager get back to different issues that come out addressed in public comment. Some of them become council agenda items, and some of them were just answered because it was an easy question. But we as a council cannot address items brought up that are not on the agenda. That is part of California law.
That's correct, I understand that. But I spoke a month and a half ago, wanting to have this on the agenda for this time, and nobody responded back to me. So I would like to now say, you know, I would like this discussed with the members so that maybe next time.
That's what I'm saying. We can't have a discussion, ma'am. It doesn't work if it's not on the agenda.
Well, how do I get it on the agenda? I would like to move that.
We have a policy that the city clerk can get you for how items get on the agenda that are not, you know, regular items. And you can go through that policy and try to do it that way.
Okay,
And
and
so
my
you could-
understanding was to come up here and speak about what you want on the agenda, and then,
Ma'am, your time is up, and I've explained
Okay,
it to you.
I
that
understand.
The options you have is to get a copy of what the policy is, try to pursue that method.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Sally O'Neill?
Your Honor, I would be in support of the short-term rentals, but it's not on the agenda, so I will excuse myself and come another
Could I just get your name?
Sally O'Neill.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Chuck Quisenberry?
Chuck Quisenberry, Imperial Beach. I have a couple of items I'd like to address the council for. In the audit here, the blocked out part where the management didn't get to make their normal procedure statements. I think just like one thing Alfred Hitchcock taught us, we can always imagine stuff far worse than whatever they're actually showing. And so when you have statements like this, right here for the public to see.
Sir, you know, this item's on our agenda,
Sure.
so if you're addressing it, I'd rather you have.
No, I'm saying having it blocked out it draws more suspicion than probably is necessary. It's probably completely innocuous. That's what I'm saying. And the other agenda is, anytime you talk about reducing lanes, reducing parking throughout our city, remember automakers made 15 million cars last year. The parking lot out here is full of cars. Cars are running on diesel, CNG, LNG, hydrogen, electric. There's a bunch of different cars out there. American freedom is based on automobiles. Think about that when some out-of-town person wants to blow sunshine up your skirt and reduce travel lanes and parking. Cars are with us for the foreseeable future. They're part of the American landscape. People biking and walking around town, nice. I enjoy biking. I enjoy walking too. But the main form of transportation in this country, in this city, in South Bay, is the automobile. Lots and lots of us driving. I noticed the city council spots are all taken out there. My truck's parked out there. We're in unison. We drove here. It's the American way. So don't reduce through traffic lanes. Don't reduce parking. Thank you.
Thank you. Erica Lowry?
Mayor and Council, I am here tonight just to inform you of a couple of upcoming events here in the city. This morning, the IB Collaborative, which is a bunch of the service groups in Imperial Beach, met. We're meeting the first Wednesdays of the month, and we're discussing our calendars so that we can all know what each other service club is doing. And on March 27th, from 6 to 8 p.m., the IBWC is holding a citizens forum meeting. And also every Friday, IB Beautiful hosts the farmers market at the pier from noon to 6. I just want to encourage the city council to attend these meetings. It's always great to see them at our service groups. Thank you.
Thank you. John Roche?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff. My name's John Roche. I live at 1258 Lawrence Street here in IB. First thing, I guess, which I've never heard of, is that train idea. I think that's a pretty nifty idea. If that could be accomplished, just the scenic part of it all would be really very big deal. Anyway, I'm here to speak about the dirt alleyways, and it's been about 3 years that I've been on this project or this topic, I guess. And the first thing I'd like to thank you for funding it or putting money towards a high priority, $500,000 I understand, and then $50,000 for the engineer to sort of get started to accomplish the paving of the alleys. I understand from Hank Levine that probably it's not going to be until 16 months before we actually get a shovel in the ground like that. So in the meantime, one thing about the paving itself, I would recommend, or I'd like to see asphalt paving instead of concrete. I think you accomplish both the same thing and for a lot less cost. In my understanding, listening to a city engineer or a streets person, that if done correctly, could last 100 years. That'll work. Currently, we do have a safety problem on the alleyways. I had a public works person the other day, and I think he agreed that the potholes are horrendous. An ambulance trying to get down and navigate these potholes would be a nightmare. So I would suggest that the city would go out, and I know what brought this up, is just gravel for this short period of time that we might need. And I'm not saying necessarily do a full gravel, but fill in the potholes so people don't have to do the four-wheel drive thing or doing the mud. 3/4 inch crush works perfectly fine. On our particular alleyway, we thought $375 is all we need to make our alleyway nice. So if the city could go out and get 10 truckloads, that'd be a truck, a driver, and 2 guys with a shovel, they could fill out the potholes. And I'm not sure it would even take 10 truckloads, but I think $5,000 or less, that could be done. And it certainly would eliminate 80 to 90% of the dust that comes at us all the time, and really has created problems. I've heard from parents with their children playing in the alleyways. Senior citizens, I was just saying before, in a wheelchair. Impossible to navigate some of these alleyways. They just cannot do that. Besides that, interestingly enough, the alleyways aren't, paving the alleyways is not always a positive for people.
Sir, your time's up.
Can I ask you,
One statement, that's it.
with that group of people that we come together with that association, that Deota, does that give me another minute or so?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. Anyway,
If you could just wrap it up, I'd appreciate it. The time's up.
curious about the money that I've heard that developed, or people that have built new houses have put into a
As I
bond.
mentioned to the speaker earlier, we can't answer anything here. We'll take
No, but
our
I'm
information
curious
down.
about the people who may have contributed. Is that going to go into the 500,000 or is
Once
that?
again, we wouldn't be able to answer that question
Okay,
for you.
thank you.
That concludes our public speaker slips on items not on the agenda. We do have a presentation this evening. I'd like to welcome Captain Sund from Naval Base Coronado.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council, City staff, citizenship of Imperial Beach. My name is Captain Chris Sund. I'm the commanding officer of Naval Base Coronado. But today, I'm the commanding officer of Outlying Field Imperial Beach and a little bit of Silver Strand Training Complex, which is the Elephant Cage Woolen Weber antenna. Before I start with a few prepared remarks, I wanted to say thank you, sir, for your continued support of the naval community. Outlying Field Imperial Beach is a great training and operational asset for the United States Navy, and the city and the citizen support of those operations is it means an awful lot to me personally and to us as an organization. So thank you, sir. Just a few topics. I wanted to talk a little bit about our commuter initiatives. I also want to talk about our noise complaint process, and lastly, just a very brief update on what we call a coastal campus project initiative. So let's see if I can. I don't know if you have monitors there, sir, but the noise complaint process is specifically designed to allow citizens to inform the Navy of helicopter or aircraft operations that are making noise to the community. So the web page snapshot that you see up there on the right of the screen is a link that we have on our public web page, CNIC, which stands for Commander Naval Installation Command, Naval Base Coronado. I think if you Google that, you will get to that Nav Base Coronado webpage. So we do encourage all citizens to use that. We don't get back to each and every one. Sometimes we do get back if you write a formal letter. Sometimes we get back as well. So we do have a noise complaint process. We take that very seriously, and we go. We're always looking for ways to streamline the process. We have been able to work with Sandag to try to develop what we call a commuter initiative. We are trying, as you know, and has been commented here in this group, we are very busy at Naval Base Coronado, not just Imperial Beach and the Silver Strand, but all the bases in the San Diego region are at population highs. The reason for that is really twofold. The Pacific is obviously an important element of our country's defense, and we are resetting from over 10 years of war in the Middle East. So those sailors and those assets are coming back home, and I think we see that. So, the roadways, I understand it, they are crowded, our commutes are heavy, it's in our mutual interest to reduce traffic wherever we can. So we are in the early stages of using traditional communication methods to get people alternative means of transportation and increase mass commuting. Okay, the last topic I wanted to provide an update on is what we're calling the coastal campus. It is a proposed growth initiative in the Silver Strand Training Complex. Again, that's the Woolen Weber area. It is specifically designed to help the Naval Special Warfare community. They are also experiencing growth. They need to improve their training and their logistics backbone to support that mission. And I think most of you know that this is a congressionally mandated project. And one of the alternatives that we're looking at is that area. So probably even more important than this slide here is going to be the time frame, and I want to share that with you in a minute. But as far as the specific purpose of that, Mr. Mayor, I think you've asked me that directly before. That's going to be not just operational log and community support, but it's going to be kind of a training hub. It is not going to be a blasting area or outdoor shooting or anything like that, but it's going to be more of a college campus type environment with indoor and outdoor physical training areas within the existing fence line that you see today. So this slide, I think, is probably most useful to the citizenship. That gold star on the bottom, summer or fall 2014, there are big projects. We've been working very hard on the draft environmental impact study for this program. We expect to be able to release that to the public here in the next 2 or 3 months. My participation in this has been to work with the legal team and the real estate team, and right now we're reviewing the environmental impact study for legal sufficiency. After that, it's going to go to my boss at the region, who will do the same and forward it up to his boss in Washington, D.C. to give the okay to release it to the public, and it'll have an open public comment period. My commitment to you, sir, is that we are going to have public scoping meetings like we did in 2012. We're going to be available from the installation perspective, special warfare perspective, and the facilities builder's perspective to try to answer questions and to try to respond to public inquiry. So I probably went over a lot of time that you gave me so graciously, but I wanted to keep it brief. You run a tight ship here, sir, so I didn't want to get on your bad side. And pending any questions, that's all I have.
Well, thank you, Captain. I know that we used to have a standing committee of 2 council members to meet with you, and that committee felt that it was actually more productive for you to be able to come talk to the full council and the community when they're here. It's a little bit easier in the evening. We appreciate you coming down because that's what it is. We're looking for information.
Yes, sir.
So we know when we can participate. So I'm going to ask my colleagues if they have any questions.
Well, first of all, I support the Navy as well as all the armed forces. Thank you for what you're doing. In my classroom I was teaching today, we're talking about heroes, and a lot of the little first graders were telling me, well, my dad's in the Navy, my dad's in the Army, my dad, and that's what they think is a hero, and so do I, so thanks for serving. With that being said, I have a couple questions. As I drive through Coronado, and I know you don't have a magic wand to make those lights work, sometimes as I drive through, I could leave Imperial Beach and get through Coronado and over the bridge like that. And then other days, it's backed up, and there won't be an accident or anything. I'm wondering if the time that people come in or affect that. I'm sure if you guys have studies or if you've looked into that. Have you noticed that yourself?
Yes. Like I said, we are at a population high right now. We are very nearly at, I think, multi-decade level highs of commuters working at both the Amphib base, which I think you're talking about specifically, and certainly at North Island. I think the population growth just in the last 6 months, I'm going to guess it's been probably the traffic count growth, about 14%. So what we have done is we've worked with some of our large tenants to stagger working hours. So the really heavy traffic in North Island is between 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning, and it goes all the way till 8 o'clock, and then from 14:30 till about 1700, it's extremely heavy. But what I've asked the 3 largest tenants at North Island to do is stagger their working hours by 45 minutes. So we continue to look at things like that to try to reduce the traffic, but there is no getting around it. We have a volume problem right now, which is why I wanted to stress our commuter initiative. We realize that it's in our mutual interest, the cities, the citizenship of both Imperial Beach and the Navy, to get people through those traffic jams quickly. And we're doing everything we can to do that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I figured you're on it. And then for the coastal campus, a couple questions. Do you know, is there going to be living quarters there?
No, sir.
No living quarters, so it's going to be a commute in.
I'm sorry.
Oh, a commute in. So that's going to be on Silver Strand Boulevard, which I think I just heard about that. which is getting close to where I live. Can I talk about this?
It's not gonna be on Silver Strand Boulevard.
Oh, it's not.
No, again, and I want to temper my comments. This is pre-decisional and pre-legal review.
Okay.
So I'm going to speak a little bit extemporaneously here, but we haven't made the final decisions. But, we are probably going to have a little more traffic, I think, on the Palm Avenue corridor to the 75. And we are going to try to work with Caltrans to get an entry point into that minimizes traffic to everybody, and certainly to the residents of Silver Strand, because that's not, we know we can't do that, so that's not going to work.
And how big a campus is it going to be? How many people on a given day? For instance,
I
know
don't
it
have the
changes
exact answer, but it could be around 3,000.
on a given day.
Yes, sir.
That's
And again, those numbers are going to be in the draft environmental impact study, so it's all pre-decisional risk.
So it's virtually like a community college.
Yes, sir.
And finally, I think on this list, I don't see it anywhere, but I think it'd be nice to offer some, once it's all done, offer some tours, for the general public, unless it's completely 100% classified.
I think it would be a great idea too. I don't have the answer to how classified it's going to be. Again, these are questions in the public scoping, I think, that we need to answer, and we're going to do everything we can to give good answers to those kinds of questions.
Well, I really appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir.
That's right. And telling us what you can. So thank you. Great.
I'd like to echo my colleagues' gratitude for your coming over. I think it's much better to actually see you face to face and to hear what you've got to say. And a real privilege to be able to ask you some questions too. I think all of us really support the military being here. I mean, our community is like that with the military. So many live here, and so many retired military personnel live here that we're really completely in sync with the military. Of course, there's concerns about traffic and noise and that sort of thing. I mean, we're a community. We have to try to be supportive but symbiotic. So I guess what I wanted to ask you about is two questions relating to that. My colleagues already asked about the campus. So there are two other areas. One is your efforts to create more carpooling and other traffic control measures, especially on a street like 13th, for example, that serves the base here, and others. Have you seen any measurable success from those efforts so far? They're laudable, but have you actually seen any results?
The initiative is actually brand new, the initiative I speak to, but we have other ongoing initiatives. We have a transportation incentive program that actually provides monetary incentive for people to carpool and vanpool. And I know we do have customers that use that at OLF Imperial Beach in the 13th Street corridor. I don't have a number for you. Bruce, do you have any?
Bruce Schaefer. You're on. Bruce Schaefer, the Community Plans Liaison for Naval Base Coronado. Currently, and this is base-wide, so it's not just here at L5B, but base-wide, our current enrollment in the Transportation Incentive Program is just a little over 1,000 people. And that's the highest enrollment of all the Navy bases in the metro area. Our van pools, currently we have about a little over $100,000 that goes towards those folks that combine in van pools. In our last count on van pools, again, Naval Base Coronado wide, which includes North Island, the amphibious base, Silver Strand, and the outlining field, it's just a little over 100 van pools. The initiative that Captain Sutton talked about is where we're going to be partnering with Sandag iCommute to better market both the Sandag iCommute program and the Navy TIP program to all of our base population.
Great, appreciate those efforts. The second thing has to do with the helicopter training flights. And a while ago, while the landing strip was under repair, we did have issues in the community. I'm sure you're well aware of those. I was wondering whether there has been a general increase over the last year or two in the number of flights, and what is being done to minimize overflights of the civilian residential areas.
Yes, sir. To answer the first part of that question, we have increased in population. Like I said, we have nearly 21 squadrons now that fly out of North Island. It is the master helicopter base for the west coast of the United States. And certainly all U.S. Navy helicopter traffic originates from that location, and they are all back from wartime deployments after a decade. So you are right. I believe the frequency of operations has increased. We are still well below the environmental impact study limits on that airfield, though. But we have a number of self-imposed, what we call force rules, to bring helicopters in not overpopulated areas. So we do our best to keep them over unpopulated areas. And I think specifically, we bring airplanes in and out on the west side of the airfield over the park and to the south of the populated, and that's always been the game plan. And as far as I know, we adhere to that in that area.
Pretty much.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Thank you. Captain, we certainly here in Imperial Beach, we support you and salute you for being here this evening.
Thank you, ma'am.
My question deals with step 4, the public review. And I was wondering if you have any secure dates that you could announce to us this evening, and I was wondering about the noticing period. And then a little bit carrying over to step 5, when you would be releasing the final EIS.
I don't have any dates, and again, I apologize to the citizenship as well as to the council and the mayor. My intent tonight was to share general ideas on coastal campus, knowing full well that I didn't have dates. But we are shooting for this summer. The statement itself is about this big, and there are hundreds of people that are working on it. So it's very complicated, and we're committed to doing it absolutely by the book. This is an important project for special warfare and the Navy, and we want to avoid any kind of missteps or miscommunication up front. And so we are being very deliberate in our approach towards the creation of this document. That same goes with the scoping and the public meeting. We will be very deliberate, but as soon as we hear dates, we will certainly publish them first through the city and then to the public. I'm sorry about that. I know that's, I wish I had the exact dates for you.
Captain, not to be a thorn in your side. A lot of people on Imperial Beach really enjoy walking on the beach, on the north edge there, north of Carnation Street. I know I do. I take my dog down there, and I think it's real important that we have continued access to that beach. I know in the past, Coronado Shores, they used to go south from the shores and have a beautiful endless walk, and that was closed off. And I would really hate to see that happen to Imperial Beach. Do you know anything about that?
As of right now, today, I can tell you that our plans for the beach line, including the high tide line and below, are no different than what they are today. That's what we will see in the EIS. So the operational capabilities that we have there now are very similar to what we're asking for coastal campus in the near future.
Because change is good. I mean, this change that you're making is good for our nation, good for you and the public. But I think too much change, like losing that beach access, would not be good for anybody in Imperial Beach or nearby. So just as you talk to the powers that be,
yes, sir.
Let me know. But thanks for being here.
Well, thank you, Captain. I'd like to say thank you. On the commuter marketing plan, I think this is a great idea. Where I serve on the Sandag board, but also my experiences in the past working with the Navy, that those Naval Aviation Depot folks, they have a standard work hours, where I know your folks in the uniform sometimes are not quite as standard on work hours. And when I worked up in the Bay Area at Alameda, they were the ones that really utilized the community services because their hours are easily predictable. I'm just aware that the military side is not as predictable being part of band pools. So I hope you're really reaching out to those folks. I think that's where your market will be. And I mentioned it probably to your predecessor and the Admiral once or twice because I saw how it worked and it worked really well in the Bay Area for that same kind of employment base. So hopefully that is where you can target as well, not just active duty military.
Yes, sir. The primary target of that commuter initiative is what we call them our DoD, our Department of Defense civilians, and that's the civilian force that works at FRC. So we know, Sandag knows, Bruce knows, that primary target market are those people with continuity who have regular working shift and working hours. So it's not the sailor. You're absolutely correct.
Thank you very much. A couple of thoughts. And one of my colleagues that kind of mentioned it. I had an opportunity, I mentioned to you, to deliver some meals with Meals on Wheels today. And the two ladies, I wouldn't say they're young ladies, members of the Women's Club, and both of them came here because of the Navy 50 and 40 years ago. At that time, the first one mentioned to me that her whole street was all Navy except for one house. And they say it's still quite a bit that way. And some of those families they raised here are coming back to Imperial Beach. So we do have a really strong connection with the Navy. They remember it. I hate to say what they said they paid for their homes. It's kind of embarrassing what I paid for mine. But so I think Imperial Beach has that long history with that. And I would like to ask you, because we did hear a public comment about traffic on Silver Strand Boulevard going into the existing gate. If you could look into that and perhaps communicate to the folks that you have working up there, training up there, that there is consideration for the residential neighborhood right there.
I will. Yes, sir.
I know that sometimes your authority, being a captain in the Navy, throws a little weight on this one, so hopefully you can help us on that.
Mr. Mayor, it's actually the speed of the traffic as opposed to the amount.
No, that's what the gentleman earlier said. I watched the captain. He was listening to that.
We can definitely, that's not appropriate. You know, we go to great lengths to make sure that our citizenship and being a good neighbor is first and foremost for all of our sailors and employees. So that's not what we wanted to hear, and I'm certainly going to take that back to the leadership that works there. I think they'll be interested in hearing.
Well, I appreciate that, and also that, you know, depending on how your EIS goes and what happens finally at the Silver Strand complex, the folks that you bring down here to Greenfield, they're out in town, they support our businesses, we really appreciate that, and hopefully even agree with Mr. Patton, perhaps maybe not an entrance through Imperial Beach, but we'll still be the closest community to that training facility, and they can enjoy some of the facilities that our businesses offer here. So thank you very much, and hope to hear back from you. I think this is a great way for communicating to the public.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Captain. Moving on to consent calendar, items 2.1 through 2.8. I do have a speaker slip, a general comment for the consent, so I'll take that, Mr. Kravitz, for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Your Honor. I've been critical of the policies of this council for a number of years, for those of you who've read any of my blogging or any of the stuff that I've published. Part of the reason why I'm an advocate for this is because in order to graduate high school, I had to pass this thing called the Constitution test. And I'm very skeptical about a policy here called consent agendas, but I know it's pretty standard in government. But for those of you who don't know, a consent agenda item is not deliberated on in public. We've hit a big milestone here in having streaming video, but consent agendas are not deliberated on. And tonight, I believe all but one of the items are consent items, which means that unless somebody asks a question about them, the council will not discuss them. Tonight, they're going to do item 2.2. It's just a little over $1.4 million that they'll spend. And there won't be any discussion. You can be here in the room, you can be at home, and they'll say A or nay, and that money's spent. And I think that there's several items on the warrant register, which is the city's checkbook, that deserve some more scrutiny. I know that you don't really have the time to go through and list these items one by one, but I think that there's a lot of things that are done on the warrant register very large checks to city attorneys, to various consultants. I mean, I don't have enough time to actually address them all, but I would like to see fewer items on the consent agenda and more items deliberated on. I have a friend who's an attorney who told me if a government's going to do something sneaky, it'll be on the consent agenda, because they'll just say A or nay. And by the way, gentlemen from the Navy, I think you should look into the railroad for your transportation.
Mr. Kravitz, public comment is to address the city council, not the public.
I didn't want to miss them. All right, well, anyway, I think there's a number of expenses, especially the expenses for the city's legal services, that are exorbitantly high. And $1.4 million every 2 weeks, and it's not the same every week. But I think it deserves a lot more scrutiny, and I think that the people of this city should demand more transparency. And consent agenda items are the place to start, because that's where the secret stuff is done. So anyway, you probably won't notice, but they're going to spend $1.4 million in a couple minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. We have items 2.1 through 2.8. Do we have a motion to approve or any comments on these? I have a motion. Motion and a second. Any discussion? In that case, all in favor? Could we please vote?
Motion carried unanimously by those present, Bill Gray absent.
Mr. Spriggs, please.
I couldn't find my button in time when you asked if there's any discussion, but I just wanted to make a general comment that probably once every 3 or 4 meetings, I have asked for the larger items on the warrant registry to be explained kind of as a surprise by city manager or whoever's on the city staff. So, we are looking at these large items. If there's something that isn't self-explanatory there, then they're asked about. And I think it's good that we publish every single line item on the warrant registry so that any citizen can pose questions as well.
Well, thank you for that comment, and I do appreciate the fact that you do, like you say, not on a regular basis, but every few meetings you ask specific questions on the warrant register to make sure that, I don't think it's the staff, it's just so we know we're watching it. So thank you very much for that. Moving on to item 5.1. Mr. Hall.
Mayor and Council, as you've already learned, I can't speak without, oh, there we go. I was going to say it's going to take me a minute. I'm kind of excited tonight to present to you our mid-year financial update. It's taken a lot of work by a lot of people, and I just want to certainly recognize the department heads of the city. They put a lot of time in. We are blessed to have the best department heads I've ever been associated with, and they do a great job. But there are 3 things really that we want to talk about tonight. One being the mid-year budget review. Essentially, this is the midpoint of the fiscal year 2014 2014 budget. 14-year budget, that would be nice. And then we also wanted to touch a little bit on the draft fiscal year 13 annual audit. And then we wanted to talk about some personnel adjustments and the reasons why we are looking at some of those. But we wanted to remind everyone that the City Council passed a 2-year operating budget in May of 2013, and that allocates funding from July 1st, 2013 through June 30th of 2015. However, those budgets are separate fiscal year budgets, and so we're bringing to you an update on the fiscal year 14 budget. What appears to be happening right now is that the revenues and expenditures are tracking consistent with the budget, and that all proposed personnel adjustments are also within those budget allocations. It appears right now that we will be a little bit, and we'll talk about that as we go through the presentation, but we'll be a little bit below on expenditures, and it appears as though we'll be a little bit above on revenues, and so that's always better than the reverse. So we're glad to see that happening. And so there's an anticipated fund balance that was budgeted by the City Council, and that was budgeted for personnel adjustments, knowing that we would have to look at our personnel based on some of the layoffs we had in the past year and some other things that are happening in the community. But there was a set aside of $242,000 roughly. We are not we're not anticipating having to use that, so that will help to build the fund balance. I also wanted to touch a little bit on the annual audit. The first number there is that the city's total assets exceed our liabilities by about $85 million. That's kind of an interesting number, and we should probably point that out. Remember that in government reporting, we have to put a value and a depreciation on everything, including the land that we own underneath the roads. Now, it's very unlikely we would sell our roads and try to gain money or assets by selling some of our roads or parks or this building. But the reality is, when you look at the value of the city assets versus its liabilities, we would be on the positive side by about $85 million. We have an unrestricted net position of roughly $22 million, and that again includes a lot of things like vehicles and whatnot. But the important number to the city council, as we look at where we are financially, is the unrestricted fund balance. And that unrestricted fund balance in June of 2013 was just over $11 million. And the city council has allocated that money, as you see below, an unassigned fund balance of about $5.6 million. We have an economic uncertainty balance of $1.8 million, strategic capital $1.7 million, public works $1.8. And then we also have put aside some money for the regional safety communication. One thing I noted there at the bottom is that these numbers do not exceed or do not include the $3.7 million that we expect to receive back from the Department of Finance for a loan that was given from the city to the redevelopment agency. And so we have not included that in these numbers. At the time the audit was done, which again was for the period up to and including June 30th, 2013, that was still an unknown reality. Of course, we've gotten new information from the Department of Finance that has clarified that quite a bit. There's also some other funds that you're aware of, vehicle replacement, the risk management, some of those other funds that we have set aside, but those essentially are internal service funds and are not reflected in the unrestricted fund balance. In the audit, I think that, again, the best thing about an audit is that you get an outside set of eyes looking at your financial documents and providing you with suggestions that you could do better. Some of the things that they have asked us to do is the segregation of duties and preparation and approval of journal entries. Talk about that a little bit. That's one of those employee adjustments that we needed to make. To reconcile our bank statements to the general ledger and the pulled cash account. Improve maintenance of the revenue and receivable accounts. Reconcile all grants to the general general ledger. Address personnel structure in the administrative services department. And then maintain detailed claims and judgment liability records. These are great suggestions. We look forward to implementing all those. I've been working with the administrative services director. He's already identified several things that we can do better. So again, the great thing about an audit is that it gives you some suggestions of ways that you can improve your financial management. So we're looking forward to implementing a lot of these, all of them. I wanted to talk a little bit about the personnel adjustments. The fiscal year 14 budget included resources to address some necessary personnel adjustments because the city council had just gone through a period where we had to lay off several employees because of the dissolution of the redevelopment agencies, which meant other people had to pick up new duties and new responsibilities. There were some position modifications that were included in our labor negotiations. For instance, right now we have a contract custodial service, and during the employment negotiations we agreed to hire a custodian for our facilities. And so we are going to meet those obligations. And then I asked the department heads to review their current anticipated workloads, their succession planning, and other management objectives to make sure that we are running the city as efficiently as possible, given the fact that there's been so much change in our workforce. I can give you an example of that. One of the things that was brought to my attention tonight that you saw in your personnel adjustments, the building official told me tonight that there are more code enforcement claims open right now than there are building permits issued. And so when you see that the adjustment that we're taking one of our code compliance officers that's part-time right now and moving that to a full-time position, that's in response to some of the things that are happening in our community. So these adjustments are to recognize and to make the necessary changes so that we can address the things that are happening in our community. We really needed to see what the outcome of the dissolution of redevelopment agencies was. Remember that things like graffiti abatement, and a lot of other things were funded by the redevelopment agency. And so we had to look at doing them a different way now. We have a good idea and a good picture moving forward, so these adjustments now kind of set the stage for moving forward. And then there were also some voluntary separations, whether that was early retirement incentives or some people simply left and we didn't replace those positions. And so we needed to look at ways to make sure that everything's being accomplished. But essentially, each department was reviewed, and we were able, and I asked them to make sure that we did this in the most cost-effective manner and to take a long-term approach. To jump forward there, basically to the third bullet point, well, if the second one's important too, you know that we've made it a very important aspect of hiring personnel in our community that we don't hire any personnel that we don't cover with our base revenues. It's important that we never use one-time monies for personnel issues because the one-time monies could stop at any time. And so we wanted to make sure that these personnel costs are also reflected in the fiscal year 15 budget, and they indeed are. And they're covered. And all these adjustments were possible, and we're going to be able to do them with the employee costs that were established by the City Council in the preparation of the fiscal year 14 and the fiscal year 15 budgets. And we will not be using the retained revenue, which essentially goes to fund balance, and you can see the amounts there that were included in the budgets for both fiscal year 14 and 15. So that was a lot of kind of financial mumbo jumbo, but I did want to summarize it a little bit, and then certainly I've asked the department heads to be available for any questions the council might have. But the revenues and expenditures are trending close to budgeted amounts. I would say that we're probably within, well, right now $250,000 one way or the other, which is 1%. So essentially, they're tracking very close to the budgeted amounts. Personnel costs, if as we anticipate them now, will be contained below budgeted amounts by about $7,000. And the other, which is all the non-personnel costs, will be contained below budgeted amounts of $190,000. That's in addition to the $240,000 that was already budgeted for retained earnings. So we feel like that the staff is doing a great job. All of them are very closely watching their finances. They've been very engaged in what's happening here. And so, in most cases, everything is going very well, and essentially, very pleased that at least this midterm budget review, that things are on track, and certainly we're open to any questions that council members might have.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. I'll start off with any questions from my colleagues on this item. Mr. Spriggs.
I have about 6 questions, Mr. Mayor. So, because I'd love to get into these budget questions, but I think I'll take a deep breath after 3, and then have some colleagues.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Of course, with total respect to the work of yourself, Mr. Hall, and the city staff and the financial staff in putting these proposals together, which involve a significant amount of staff adjustments. A lot of them are going to result in salary adjustments and recruitments for positions that are classified higher than the positions that they're being replaced. This is all, I think, well understood because we have to make adjustments. This is the first set of comprehensive adjustments after the loss of redevelopment funding and the need to reallocate staffing and work assignments to serve the public. So I think I understand that very well. But there are also adjustments that are being made during a period following a downturn. And our job, I believe, as elected officials is to be the toughest critics of the city's plans to spend money, more than probably any other area. I think that's one of our jobs, because it's the public's money. And so we've come through this downturn where the state and the city and everybody in California and the country made major adjustments, reducing staff, laying people off, etc. people who were hired during the prior peak in the budget process in the state, et cetera, and now have to be reduced. Now we're on the up curve again, where revenues are looking better and the balances, as you pointed out, are looking better, et cetera. So I think my number one concern is that we don't overcommit staff. In other words, long-term recurring commitments to salaries and benefits on a budget that's improving, but that will surely, once again, as the economic cycle is like the sun and rising and setting, we're going to have a downturn. So I want to make very, very sure that we're cognizant that we're not going to commit overly to a budget that's in good years and then turn around and what is it going to be? Who knows? 18 months, 3 years, when there's another state or national downturn, we end up being in a deficit position once again. So that's kind of question number one, and based on that cyclical nature of our economy and our, not only this city's budget, but everybody's budget, which rise and fall with the economics of the state and the city and the tax revenues, et cetera. So that we're not overcommitting when we're sort of halfway up the curve towards, maybe a high point in revenues. So that's the first question. I'd like a general response from.
Yeah, maybe, and I added a couple of slides in case the council had some questions, but maybe the best example that might be to look, for example, in the Administrative Services Department and where we're doing some restructuring in the Administrative Services. It's not necessarily that we, in fact, are hiring higher positions. For example, when the finance supervisor left that department, what it left us was a very horizontal department. And so what we really needed to do was restructure that so that there was more of an appropriate way to track our money. So essentially what we're doing is reclassifying to create 2 senior accountant positions. So instead of having one person answering to another, now there's 2 sets of eyes watching all of the money. And then instead of filling a finance supervisor position, we're actually filling an account clerk technician, which is a much lower paid position. And so one of the things and one of the tasks that we had with the department heads was, even though we were trying to make these adjustments, we're not going to spend any more money to do it. We're trying to do it in a more efficient manner. So what they were able to do was propose to me the changes that they had in their department and essentially stay the same. So we're not going above the budgeted amounts for personnel. We're trying to make sure that we are adjusting personnel. Maybe the example of, instead of another full-time building official moving our part-time code compliance officer to full-time, is just responding to the workloads that we currently have. It's not necessarily adding employees. We did add some employees. I think that in total, we added 2 employees, one being a custodial position and one being this account clerk technician, in addition to then a part-time office specialist. So it wasn't a great addition of employees, but there was some reclassification and different job descriptions given to some of the existing employees.
Most of these reclassifications were to increase responsibilities or recognize that employees were doing more than there was in their existing job classification.
Exactly.
Which follows from having to do layoffs and people having to step up. And so a lot of this is recognizing workload that's been there that hasn't been previously recognized.
Exactly.
But it does come with, and I really think we have great staff, in our town. They work very hard. They filled in when colleagues had to be laid off, and I commend every single staff member here in Imperial Beach. I'm very proud of our staff. So I guess one of the things that I'm concerned about is that I didn't see in the report when you talk about reclassifying an incumbent's position, a position that's occupied at a higher level. there's two consequences I wanted to ask you about. One is you assume that the person is fully qualified to serve in a higher classification. There's some evidence, and you cited it to some extent, that if they're doing the work, then they must be qualified to do the work. But that's not always, it's not really stated explicitly in each case that the set of qualifications for a job, which at a higher level, and they tend to be higher level skill requirements than somebody may have been hired at a lower level, that those are being met, or that the job is being advertised and competed for. Again, nothing against current employees. We're doing a great job. It's how we do business that I want to make sure we're doing business in the best interest of the public, and that we're getting the right people into these higher positions that have the skills that we would have secured had we been advertising for those jobs in the first place. And I don't see an explicit statement in each case, to that states that has been looked at, and it's kind of implied, but it's not stated explicitly. Secondly, when we move people to higher positions and higher salaries, there's another cost, and maybe I just didn't see it in the discussion, and that is the benefit costs go up by a proportional amount. It's not just the salaries. And, we have pretty good benefit packages, and so there's that consequence as well. And so this is a simple answer. There's a simple answer to this, and that's whether the benefit packages are calculated into the salary adjustments and reflected in your budget estimate.
Yeah. To answer the second question first, yes, we look at total compensation value on every position. To answer the first question, let me make clear what tonight's objective is. None of these positions are filled. What we're bringing to you is a request for a different structure in some of these positions. Now, before any of them are filled, an existing employee or a new employee is going to have to demonstrate that they have the skills to do that job. If they don't, then they won't be just simply placed in that position. What we're bringing to the council tonight is a modification for how we plan to staff the city and what we think would be the most effective way of carrying out the responsibilities that have been given to us. Tonight's actions do not fill or change any of those classifications. We're just coming to you with what we believe is a more effective structure now for, again, since we're using the same example, I'll just keep using the same one. Since we are seeing an uptick and more involvement in code compliance than we are in building, we need to have more code compliance officers out on the street. So it's more of a structure that we're bringing to the city council. No one would be placed in these positions unless they're capable of doing those jobs. And none of that has occurred at this point, nor will it until we're comfortable that they can do those new tasks.
So just to follow up on that, with assuming we approve this action tonight, what will be the next steps in? Because as I understand it, these positions have already been rewritten. So what will be the process then of mapping people to those new positions that are needed to get the work done?
Yeah, some of those, a lot of those, they'll have to be advertised. For instance, the deputy city clerk that has been a vacant position for us for some time now. Someone would have to apply. They would have to meet all the qualifications, and we would select the best person for that position. In terms of, I guess what I'm saying is it's not tomorrow morning. Every department has several of these changes that they need to make. And so the department heads are going to have to prioritize how quickly they can get this done. We have one person in HR right now. We're a smaller community. So we can only move so fast. And so we sat down as a group of department heads and we established what we think is probably the best structure for operating our city. Now we're going to have to sit down as a group of department heads and say, okay, if that's the structure, now we have to prioritize which positions we fill first. We simply can't do it all at once. We don't have those resources. So it's probably going to be a period of six months or so before we get all of these adjustments made and make all these changes in the organization. It's going to take some time. In fact, I think one of them we were talking today, we probably wouldn't fill until at least July 1st. We wouldn't even start advertising, so.
I'll sit back for a minute.
Thank you for your questions.
Okay, let's see here. I agree with my colleague in a couple of points he made. When I first became a council member, and even before, I noticed in the workforce there was a lot of 2-for-1s happening, where we'd get rid of 2 people, and 1 person would come in and fill that job, and I think that happened quite a bit within the city staff here. Tougher workload. I don't think 1 person doing 2 people's job is efficient, but it's doable. They did it, and you know, we kept afloat, and they did a fine job. Better times now, and I think we could be more efficient and have an employee that's going to want to stay and work here instead of being overworked and want to stay here, get trained, and leave. And if there is a downturn, like you had mentioned, Mr. Smith, you know, unfortunately, you know, there are downturns and they do happen. We kind of go back to square one again, and you know, hopefully that doesn't happen. But we don't go back to 2-for-1. I think one of the most important things I see here is that we get the best person possible to fill these positions, and I think that's crucial. We get the best person possible, and whatever way you're going to do that, I think you know, just making sure that public and we know how that's going to be done. And then the final thing, just real quick, is when I was looking at network system technician from part-time to full-time, and from speaking to you and some other people, I understand taking care of all these computers, every department's computers, printers, software, full-time job. Especially when it takes out somebody's working ability when they can't work on their computer or print. But I do want to make sure that we're filling that niche of social media somehow within this, and making sure that what we do is on websites that we're getting the word out. I know we're getting the word out on video now, which is nice, but how's that going to be embedded in this?
Yeah, you bet. First, in our IT, we used to actually have 2 positions in our IT, and what we're finding out is that in today's day and age, you really can't have a team of specialists with 2 people. And so what we have is we're going to have a full-time IT person to do just what you talked about, keep our computers going, printers, keeping kind of the city moving. And then rather than hiring a second IT person, we're going to retain that revenue or that expenditure, however you want to look at that. And when we have a problem, for instance, with Outlook or one of our specific programs, we can bring a specialist in that can actually fix it the right way. And so rather than having 2 people, we're going to reserve that second salary and go out and bring in specialists when we actually have computer problems. If we have a server issue, we'll bring in a server specialist. And so we think that that's probably a better structure for Imperial Beach, where we have a rather small workforce. We only have about 70 employees. So we don't have 10 people in our ID department that can each specialize in something having to do with the computers. In terms of the social media, we actually have some people in our organization that have a lot of skills that we're not using properly. And that's one of the things I think you noticed. One of the good things about a downturn is that you can hire people with a higher skill level and put them in positions that probably are a lower skill position. But what we've been able to do is we actually have some people on our staff that have some skills, especially in that social media area, understand a lot of the stuff that I can't even talk about, and Facebook, and now Facebook's old. I just barely opened a Facebook account. Now there's like this new, there's some other thing now that's taken over Facebook, and I don't even know what that is. I can't even use Facebook yet. So, Instagram, yeah, or something like that. Now it's Instagram. I know I don't have an Instagram account. I don't even have a Twitter account. Now that's old news. But we do need to keep up on that kind of stuff. And we do have some people that have some skills in that area, but we've had them in purely clerical positions. And so, at least in one instance, what we're trying to do is hire a part-time clerical person that will free up someone that has those skills to do some of that social media outreach and some of those things for our organization. So, again, rather than I want to make it real clear because I want to send the right message here. We have a great community and we have a great work staff. But what we don't have is all the resources in the world that when we have council members say, you know, we really need to get more involved in the social media aspects of what's happening in the community, that we can just run out and hire a social media expert. I mean, we're in a position where we do wear more than one hat. And so what we're trying to do is really, the way you guys get sick of my sports analogies, but I'm going to use another one. You know, essentially we have a team here, and what we're trying to do is make sure that we have all our players in the position where we can be most successful. We have some people out of position that can probably add more to the team playing in a different position. And that's where you see a lot of these adjustments, and that's why there's not a lot of cost with these adjustments. We're just kind of changing what they're doing. You noticed in probably 3 different instances, we are moving administrative secretary 2s to administrative assistants. That really accomplishes 2 things. One thing is for our pay scale, the administrative assistant 2s, if they aren't constantly looking for another position, then I don't know exactly how they're surviving. But what we're doing is we're trying to train administrative assistants. It does pay a little bit higher. Certainly it's on the lower end. It's a clerical position. But it gives us some staying power because that's just that continuity and that sustainability in our workforce has really allowed us to be a little bit better at what we do and to be able to do it with a few less people. And so what we're really trying to do is take advantage of every resource that we have without having a lot of people in our organization. And that's just the reality of Imperial Beach. We love it. I think that's the people that we draw here, and the reason that even though we're certainly on the lower end of the pay scale when it comes to San Diego County, I don't think anybody argues that, and we understand it. But people come here because of that challenge. A lot of people don't want to be pigeonholed into a job. They want to be able to grow and do a lot of different things. We offer that. We offer people an opportunity to do a lot of different things in the organization. And in a bigger organization, you don't get to do that. And so it draws a certain kind of person. And that's, I think, why we have some stability here. Sorry, that was a long answer. I got on the soapbox. We have great people.
Thank you. You know, always during budget time, you talk about liabilities and assets. And I personally believe that our employees are our asset. And Mayor, you and I have seen many, reductions in staff over the years. We've seen where nobody's gotten a pay raise. It's a stipend, a one-time stipend. And that has always bothered me because I want to grow our staff. They are so critically important. And just so the public knows, as council members, we sit down with our city manager every week. We went through these positions one by one and talked about, taking one person from part-time to full-time and what that means for us as an organization and what it meant for the person as well. And, I've lived in this community a long time, and we have lost a lot of talent over the years. They've gone to Coronado, they've gone to other cities up the coast, and it's at our loss. Certainly it's their gain, and we've applauded them, their efforts to move on and better themselves, but they always say, I wish I didn't have to go. I'd really love to stay in Imperial Beach, but it's been a matter of finances so many times. So that we are even able to add, Mr. Hall, you said 2 employees, is, to me, this is good news. This is really good news for us because, like I said, we've seen so many reductions. And one of the questions that I had for Mr. Hall, we had talked about it, colleagues, that when this was before us, was opportunities. I wanted to keep that in the forefront, Mr. Hall. I had mentioned it to you. The opportunities for interns, volunteers, and community service teens, teenagers who are striving to meet those community service needs for graduation. Mr. Hall, could you speak to that just a little bit?
Yeah, you bet. In fact, one of the things that we've tried to look at is that if we can, first I want to echo a little bit about what you said. The last thing we want to be is a training ground for everybody else. This is a great community and we want to keep our employees, but beyond that, we want to be fair with them. And again, while we can't offer the highest salaries, what we can offer is stability and support and opportunities to do things that couldn't otherwise, and growth and some of those kinds of things. So that's kind of exciting that we're being able to do that. But as we try to advance some of our clerical staff and give them new opportunities and opportunities to learn new job skills, what that does is it does open up positions that are very entry level. For instance, the the administrative assistant in the city manager's office. Now that if we have people doing other things, that opens up an opportunity for someone to come in and do some on-the-job training for answering phones and filing and doing some of those things that right now we have people that probably have a skill set that is beyond doing that. We have people doing that job instead of things we really need done at the city. So if we can move them and do things like social media and some of those kinds of things, it opens up opportunities for some of the on-the-job training that you guys were talking about, and internships and some of those kinds of things. Because essentially, the internships and those kind of on-the-job training opportunities are essentially at entry level. That's where they're at. And right now, we have very skilled people at our entry-level positions, and so bringing in an intern would probably be a backward step. Now it gives someone an opportunity to do
that. Three more. No, I'm just kidding. Just before the question, a quick comment on this whole intern thing, because I heard something that I'd like to just comment on and hopefully shed some light on. Internship jobs, whether it's high school level or college level, which I'm a strong supporter of, that I think can help the city, aren't the same thing as an employee, part-time or full-time or whatever. The whole idea of an internship is to provide a learning experience for the student, at the same time getting some useful work done for the city, and that usually doesn't mean so much the clerical and the copying and all that. There may be some of that in there, but it really is getting our youth involved in in projects that where they can do some research and they can offer something of their skill set and perspective to the city, and help them develop their critical thinking skills and that sort of thing.
We were all interns once, absolutely.
Exactly.
We all went through that, absolutely.
Me too. Thank goodness there was some useful work there. I probably wouldn't be, sitting here. I guess the last question that I really had is, you've got all the departments essentially making adjustments, staffing adjustments, workload adjustments, almost every single department. And you can't do it all at once. So what do you see as the priorities for action amongst the requests? And I know this kind of puts you on the spot because you got a department head sitting here and everybody wants to be first and that sort of thing. But if you'd comment on that, at risk of being taken out back later, it'd be good to hear what you think the priorities are for initial actions in making some of these changes.
Yeah, I freely admit, so it won't be a surprise to them, my favorite department head is the city manager. But no, the one you see before you, frankly, when the auditors come down and they say, you could make some changes in the administrative structure of your administrative services department that would help you with your financial accounting and you could maybe improve there. That says a lot to me. That's an outside person saying, so that certainly makes that a priority. I think that's critical because, again, the budget and the finances is that's the backbone of the community. We need to make sure that that's functioning properly. So that will certainly be a priority.
Good answer.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reality. And then from there, the capacity of the department heads, remember that the city manager will play a fairly minor role in a lot of these adjustments. So a lot of it will be the capacity of the department heads to make these adjustments within their own departments. They're all really busy as well. But most of these, again, because we're not hiring people, we're kind of giving them different job assignments. A lot of that will happen as they put their workload together in the coming months. So a lot of it will depend on them. Yeah, finances first in my book. It's got to be.
Thank you.
I've got some questions slightly different. Revenues, we're in mid-year budget review. True, you've got some personnel things there, but usually we look at the finances of the city. So our basic income, which is revenues, is sales tax, property tax, a couple other things. How are we tracking sales tax, what was budgeted. We've got some new businesses, but they don't show up yet. I know that, for instance, a well-run restaurant is one of the best, highest per square footage generator of sales tax. So we haven't seen that yet. So how are we looking on sales tax there?
On sales tax, and Doug, correct me if I go wrong here at all, he can give you exact numbers. Essentially, we're a little bit behind in sales tax. And we are a little bit, well, actually quite a bit ahead in property tax. But as the mayor points out, we've had some new businesses open up, and one that's very likely to generate significant amount of sales tax would be the new restaurant. And they've been busy and they're doing quite well. That is not showing up in our sales tax numbers yet. Typically, what we receive in sales tax is 4 to 5 months behind the actual generation of the sales tax. That gets collected, goes up to Sacramento, and they have to do their administrative stuff, and then essentially, and I think everybody knows how sales tax works, but in the 7 3/4% sales tax that you pay, the city gets 8.5%, 9, 10, it keeps going up. But ours doesn't go up. We get 1% of that. The city gets 1% on direct sale of that. And so all the money goes up to the state and then it gets dispersed back to the cities. And so there's quite a lag there, so we haven't seen that. The other big revenue source, of course, for a community is the transit occupancy tax. And we have not seen any of the transit occupancy tax from the new hotel at this point in time, except that amount that they agreed to pay while they were under construction. So we believe that the revenues, again, we try to be very conservative because you just never know what's going to happen. We believe the revenues will come in about $200,000 ahead of where we anticipated. And that's on top of the $213,000. That was $7,000 on the personnel side, about $193,000 on the, when you compare the expenditures with the revenues that are coming. So again, while those are big numbers and important numbers, and we're watching every penny, we're within percentage points of the budget. So it's not like a 20% increase or a 20% low. We're talking kind of 5% at the most when we're reviewing.
Thank you. Any other questions? Please.
When we did the budget, you budget 25% TOT for the hotel, but some very, very low number. Do you recall?
I don't remember exactly what they budgeted, but it was a low number. What the city gets is 10% of every room night. And I'm not sure what they budgeted, but I know that we were 333,000. That's a very conservative number. For what they're booking right now, that's a very conservative number.
Yeah. And when does that kind of revenue show up? I mean, you mentioned sales tax for about 4 or 5 million. What's that? How's TOT work?
The TOT runs about the same way. All revenues come in probably about a quarter behind. And so we won't see those revenues until they opened in about the first of the year. We'll probably start to see those revenues when we get our, I don't know if we'll get them in this quarterly payment and whether it will be in July. But it might actually even be after the second quarter before we start to see the revenues. Then it's every quarter. That's right.
While we're on TOT, I understand we have one of the lower TOT rates in the county, especially for a up-and-coming tourist destination. And I think it'd be helpful if we took a look at that. I wouldn't say jack it up, double or triple or anything like outrageous like that, but we probably ought to take a look at it because it may be that as the hotel catches on and we start getting more tourism interest, that some small percentage increases in the TOT will be well overshadowed by increases in the room rates, for example, at the hotel. Mm-hmm. So it won't really make that much of a difference in terms of the cost to anyone. And I don't mean just the hotel, I mean our TOT rates in general. Secondly, I think we need to take a look at whether we're collecting the TOT that we actually should be collecting, where it is being generated, and maybe that we need to have some sort of a review or I don't want to say audit, but some sort of an examination of where are the hotels and short-term rentals as they exist right now legal? And are we tracking those TOT revenues and collecting them? And then there's short-term rentals in areas that aren't really legal. And what rights do we have in those areas? And even if we can't stop the activity that's not legal, we should at least tax it. So I don't know. It seems to me this is something we should be looking into in terms of revenue that we're not receiving that we should be.
Yeah, we'll look into that. In general, San Diego County is relatively low in TOT. Again, I came from the Coachella Valley where it's all tourism, significantly higher TOT rates there. But absolutely, we can compare ourselves with what's happening in the other communities in San Diego County.
Any other thoughts, Greg?
While we're on TOT, Mr. Hall, I hate to put you on the spot, but can you, how are we tracking with our TOT? Are we over budget, under budget? Do you know the numbers? And I think to speak to Mr. Sprague's comment, isn't that an issue that the Code Compliance Department would check into as far as collecting TOT from vacation rentals that are not licensed versus ones that are, literally?
Yeah, I'm looking at the Administrative Services Director, and what we can do, because I don't know them exactly. So what I'll do is have him send out a memo to the council about where we are with TOT in particular. Because that'll take you a little while to look it up, and we can get that information to you. Sure.
Okay,
Not a
great.
problem.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm looking here that the financial audit for 2012-13, we do not have the final copy of that. What you have is the last minute agenda was a draft.
That's
so
correct.
I take it we cannot receive that document until we get the real thing.
Yeah, you're exactly
Okay.
right, yeah.
So then what we have before us is adopt the resolution 2014-7458, approving the personnel adjustments and amending fiscal year 2014-15 salary and compensation plan. We have a motion and a second. Any further comment? Not seeing any. Can we please vote?
Maybe if I can make one other comment, Mayor, and we apologize. We had written up and given some indication that we'd be talking about the audit. We just simply didn't receive the final audit. Point well taken. I think Mr. Quisenberry had a good point. And we'll make sure to get that final audit to you and get it posted on our webpage. It's certainly not anything that we, transparency is what we're after here. And we apologize that you got a draft copy. It was the best we could do at the last minute. We apologize for that.
So that'll just come back to probably our next meeting for approval. Okay.
Motion carried unanimously by those present, Bill Gray absent.
That concludes this evening's agenda. The meeting is over.